Next, let's talk references. If a job description says, please provide 3 references, you should always provide them. There really shouldn't be an instance where you put references available upon request, because if they've asked for them, if they're requesting them, you'll have sent them in. If they don't ask for them, you can feel free to either leave them off your resume or off of your document uploads, or you can include them. It's up to you, but always follow the directions. You can put them on a separate page with your resume header, which includes your name and address and email address and phone number, or you can include them in the white space left over on your resume if there is space. Always ask your references before you list them if they would like to be a reference, as well as remind them when you're in the job search. So maybe you haven't talked to them for a couple of years, or you haven't changed jobs for a few years and you still want them to be your reference. Make sure that they're still okay with that and give them a heads up by contacting them and maybe sending an updated copy of your resume so that they know what you've been doing the last few years. And finally, make sure that they are professionally focused. This means people like professors or supervisors or coworkers, either past or present. Have them be your references. Don't use friends or family. There's too much bias that can occur there. Once you've narrowed down who you want to be a reference for you, make sure that you're including all of the necessary information. Make sure you have their name, what they do, where they work, and 2 ways to get a hold of them, preferably a working phone number and a working email that they check often. Many employers are going to email references instead of phone references these days because it's hard to play phone tag with people. So make sure that you have an updated email that your reference will be likely to check. Next, let's talk cover letters. Unlike a resume, you may have never had to write a cover letter. A cover letter is basically an introduction to your resume. It allows you to clarify some things in your resume or expand on them for the employer, and helps to introduce who you are and add a little personality to your documents. It should be customized for each application, but that can mean just tweaking what is most important for that job within the letter. You don't have to start from scratch every time. It should be brief yet informative, no longer than 1 page. It should incorporate some of those key words from your job description so that the employer is impressed right off the bat. And it shouldn't be repetitive of your resume. Do not use direct phrases off of your resume. This is to expand on what you've already written. At the top of the document, you should include your resume header again, so your name and contact information. Just go ahead and copy and paste it from your resume. It kind of creates a letterhead look for you. Next, you're going to put the date that you're sending the letter. Make sure that you update this for every letter. I've seen many that people don't update, and we know that you've not spent the time, you haven't been detail-oriented and made that change. Next, you'll have the company address and perhaps the person that you're addressing the letter to. You might put their name above the address. If you're unsure of the name, you can write Human Resource Manager and then the company address. This also goes for the first opening line, Dear Mr. or Ms., and their last name. If you aren't sure, again, who to address it to, you can put Hiring Manager or Human Resource Manager and follow that with a colon. So Dear Mr. or Ms. or Dear Hiring Manager, colon, and then you start your letter. Cover letters can be intimidating because you don't know where to even start. You look at a blank sheet of paper and you're not sure what to include. So I've broken this down into 3 sections. It can be in 3 paragraphs that follow these sections. The intro section is going to be short. You're going to express your interest in the position, state what the position is, tell them where you found it, and then make a transition sentence. So an example might be, I'm writing to express my interest in the position of social worker at Family Resources. I found this position on Indeed.com, and I'm looking forward to furthering your mission as a social worker with your organization. The middle section is definitely the hardest section to write because it contains the true content of your letter, but I've simplified it here into a few key points. All you're doing is trying to match your skills to what they're looking for in the position. Just like you did in your resume, although you're maybe focusing on things more holistically. You want to give examples when possible and explain anything needing clarification. Maybe you had an employment gap because you took time off to care for a child. This is the place that you can address that. If you're unsure about whether to address it or not, maybe just wait until you meet that person in person. But if you think it's going to be an issue for your application, just go ahead and write a quick, brief sentence and then get off of it. You may say, you might have seen in my resume that I have an employment gap from 2005 to 2010. I was using this time to take care of my young children. I am looking forward to getting back into the field and to increase my skills to help your organization. You don't need to dwell on it too long, and you should always put a positive spin on it. Finally, your closing section can be similar to your intro section in terms of length. All you need to do is talk about how you would love to talk with them further in an interview, put your contact information again, write that you are thankful for their consideration, and then sign your name twice. So the first time, you can put it in a signature font, or you can actually sign it, and then right below that you need to have it printed in regular font or whatever font you have in the rest of the document. This is just formal business writing, and that should be the end of your letter. Let's talk next about interviewing. One of the best ways that you can ensure that you're going to ace an interview is by preparing for it. Many people just walk into an interview, hope they know the answers to the question, and leave feeling defeated. So the first thing you need to do is research every organization that you're applying for, or at least that you get an interview for. You want to know what's new with their organization. Maybe they've had a recent innovation or a new program started. You want to be familiar with their mission. Those are all good things to just kind of know a little bit about so that you feel comfortable talking to the interviewer. I had a family member at one point who did an interview, didn't know much about the organization, and was asked right off the bat, "What do you know about our organization?" She froze, didn't know what to say, and it derailed the rest of the interview. So don't be like her. Know what you're going to say, have some knowledge and some background, and impress them right off the bat. Always have questions as well. So when you're doing your research, write down some questions you have about the organization. Things like, what's the most challenging part of working in this field? Or can you tell me more about that recent program that you started? This is going to be very impressive to the interviewers. Next, you need to prepare yourself. You need to know yourself. Obviously, you're going to be asked about your strengths and weaknesses. Always focus these in relation to the job. We may have personal strengths and weaknesses that we're constantly working on, but you want to think more in a professional way. Strengths are usually easy to come up with. Weaknesses are harder because you don't want to hurt yourself in the interview process. So try to think of things that you actually want to improve on or learn more about. Maybe you've had a lot of experience working with older adults, but you want to get more work and training with children. That can be a weakness, and it shows that you're aware of the areas that you need help in and that you're willing to learn. Think about your goals, your future, the things that you want to do in your job so that you're prepared to talk more fully about how this position can help you to reach those goals. And then think through your accomplishments ahead of time. They're going to ask you about very specific things that you've done in your past for your job, and you want to be able to talk very specifically, just like on your resume, about the value that you brought to your organization or company. Finally, you want to practice your elevator speech and behavior-based questions. We'll talk about those next. Your elevator speech can be used in a networking situation, such as at a career fair, or in an interview situation. The most likely time that it's going to be used is when that interviewer inevitably asks you, "Can you tell me a little bit about yourself?" That's when we all tend to freeze because we're not sure what they want to know about us and how we can be professional about it. So a good rule of thumb is to sort of follow this form. You should speak for no longer than a minute about yourself, and then let them ask follow-up questions about you if they so please, but don't ramble on and on about who you are. The things to focus on are obviously your name, your major or your program, when you are graduating or when you graduated, any past experience or inspiration that led you to this field or this interest in this position, your current status, what you're doing, so maybe you've mentioned that already as a student, or maybe you're an intern somewhere, or you're in a current role and looking to move forward or beyond it. And then finally, you can incorporate your future goals into that as well. So talk about how this job will help you to reach your future goals and how your skills will hopefully help them to reach their goals as an organization. If you have a partner around, maybe a classmate or a friend, feel free to practice that with them at this time. It may be awkward or rocky the first few times, but the more you practice this, the more confident you'll become. And then when you get that question at the beginning of the interview, you can start off on a strong note and feel confident. Next, we get into what we call behavior-based questions. These are questions that usually start out with, can you tell me about a time when blank happened? Or can you give an example of this? These are the questions that we often get tripped up on in interviews because we haven't thought them through or we're scrambling in our mind to come up with a good story. So preparing ahead of time can really help you to have a strong answer and one that showcases your skills and abilities. So we use the STAR approach. STAR stands for situation, task, action, and result, and really it's just a storytelling method, but it helps to keep you focused in your answers. Situation and task can go together, so when you're answering a question like, can you tell me about a time when you faced a conflict with a coworker and how you worked through it? You can discuss the specific situation you were in that created the conflict or the specific task that you were working on. Then you'll talk about the action you took to resolve that conflict, and then the result, what happened after that action. Hopefully the conflict was resolved. If you have a situation where the conflict wasn't resolved or it was a bad situation overall, maybe think of a different story. That's why it's so important to think of this ahead of time so that you don't get started on a story and realize that it was a negative situation and then try to dig yourself out of that. An example answer to this question might be, my coworker and I were working with a child at an after-school program. The child started misbehaving and I wanted to handle the discipline in one way and my coworker wanted to handle it in another way. We didn't see eye to eye. Instead of fighting about it in front of the child, we left him with another supervisor and we walked away, talked about the pros and cons of each form of discipline, and then came back and handled the situation with the child in a positive manner. As a result, we came to a compromise, the child learned from his mistakes, and we all moved on and had a better day. When it comes to these stories of the STAR approach, it might be helpful to write things out and then practice them aloud, or just continually, like the elevator pitch, practice them out loud so you feel comfortable explaining them. So we've come to our last section, salary negotiation. This is a topic that takes a lot of time and a lot of practice. So I'm just going to go over the basics today, but if you ever need assistance, you can always contact the Career Center and we can either meet in person or talk on the phone about how to negotiate your specific salary or benefits. The first thing to note about salary negotiation is that you should always try to negotiate. No matter what the job is, even if you think it's enough for you in terms of salary or benefits, make sure you do your research and find out, is it enough for the field? Is it enough for the market, for the education that you have, etc. If you don't try to negotiate, you could be leaving hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table over the course of a lifetime. If you accept a lower salary, then the next time you get a job, you're not going to have a high salary to leverage you on that. So you just need to try to get as much as you possibly can based on what you bring to the table and what the market value is. When I talk about market value, I'm referring to the research that you need to do. Salary.com is a great place to start. It allows you to type in the profession that you're going into, a location that you want to live in, and then it will give you a salary average for that field. You can also ask for a salary range in the course of a negotiation, or you can look at public records if you're working for a public company. You always want to think about your benefits, so maybe your salary is a little lower, but you have certain benefits that are advantageous to you. Think about flex time, health insurance, gas and mileage if you have to travel, even moving expenses. If you're moving across the country, be sure to ask if they're going to help pay for those things because that can really add up. Finally, you always want to negotiate, if possible, after your job is offered to you or when they bring it up. So when you go into an interview, be prepared with your research about your target salary and about what you're worth in the market before you go to that. So whenever possible, wait until they bring it up. Otherwise, have your target range ready and available for you when you're going into that interview so that you're prepared and you don't get caught off guard. For more information, as I said, you can contact the Career Center and we can help you individually. Or if you're on campus, check out our website. We have a salary negotiation workshop on our events page. Finally, we're here to help you with everything we covered today and beyond. We can review your resume and your cover letter, or even your LinkedIn, or help you start those from scratch. We can help you with your job search, giving you more specific strategies for what you're looking for. As I said, we can help with salary negotiation. We can also do mock interviews with you in person or on the phone, or even over Skype. and we can help with career counseling if you need it. We always have recruiting events going on throughout the year. Our biggest ones are our Health Sciences Fair, which is a large career fair for health science students. Our Career Boot Camp, which allows you to get your resume and LinkedIn reviewed by local employers, as well as do mock interviews with them. And Pro Fair, which is our largest fair throughout the year. It's held twice a year, and it's for all students looking for anything from part-time work or internships to full-time jobs. Thank you for listening today. If you have any questions about the things we've covered, feel free to contact our office at our phone number listed on the screen or our email. Good luck to you on your career journey.